Hello and welcome to Very Much Mistaken with Chris and James Parrott. And it seems everyone is pretty excited that Red Bull might actually be fastest this time around.
Yeah. Judging by the testing in Bahrain, I think they probably had the best testing out of everyone. I mean, there were a few strong contenders from it, but they were the fastest overall lap, and I think they maybe clocked up. Not maybe if it wasn't the most miles, then it was up with the most miles, and that tends to be what you really care about with the preseason testing, isn't it?
Yeah, and interesting, of course, Mercedes was the fewest.
Yeah.
They had a lot of problems.
And I think they usually wipe the floor in terms of miles pretty much every season up until now that they've been since the turbo hybrid era. So
I mean, this is why it's all about Bahrain. But, you know, we've been here a bit before. Ferrari in 2017-18 were the best package going into the start of the year. But, you know, I think it's particularly with 23 races, Formula One is a marathon. And, you know, just because you're quickest at the start doesn't mean that means you're going to win overall. Yeah. And, you know, on top of that, with so much change coming for the next season, and teams are going to have to, you know, commit a lot earlier, I think, to sort of planning for 2022. How much you can develop throughout the year is going to be, you know, that's going to be a real challenge.
How much you want to develop. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, Red Bull look like they've done the best job, but for me, until the lights go out and the checker flag drops on the first race, you don't actually know, because, you know, in any sport, the best team doesn't always win.
Yeah.
There are so many different variables that can unfold over an hour and a half, and particularly in motorsport, where you know, for anything from the weather to some sort of mechanical issue, can put the kibosh on it. So yeah, like Red Bull look good, and pound for pound they might be the best setup. But for me, I think still Mercedes are the team to beat.
I'd struggle to disagree with that as well. I think because we've kind of seen throughout this turbo hybrid era people slowly gaining on Mercedes, and I think that's still going to be the case. Whether like it'll probably take maybe another few more years just maintaining the same rules for someone to maybe get better than them. So yeah, I'm still going with Mercedes as top, but again, it's like getting more exciting in terms of how competitive it's going to be, particularly as, you know, we saw the end of last race in Abu Dhabi. Verstappen was absolutely dominant. He got pole, led throughout the whole race, didn't look like losing it. So clearly there have been some gains to be made, big gains from Red Bull throughout that season.
Yeah, and it's also interesting, you know, the conversation is not Verstappen versus Perez or Hamilton v Bottas. It's very much Verstappen v Hamilton, and that, you know, that is an indicator that yes, Red Bull might be a tenth or so quicker per lap, but it's not enough to mean that the whole team is just going to be sailing off into the distance, and the, you know, the pure racing power of the two best drivers when the cars are evenly matched is going to be what defines who is competing. And it's quite old school, isn't it, having, you know, Lewis is well established himself as being number one and can dominate Valtteri, and I think, you know, he knows that's why they get on, frankly. You know, if you look at Lewis's teammates, he's got on with the ones that he's better than, and hasn't gotten on so well with the ones who can put up a decent fight against him. And I think it's great that Perez has landed the seat at Red Bull and has got an opportunity to take that one win that he's finally got, and have the opportunity to win more. But I don't think anyone is really expecting him to challenge Verstappen in terms of being the number one driver.
No, and Red Bull are so all in on Verstappen. They've been all in on him since they promoted him like at such an early age. So and Horner has been going on about making Verstappen the youngest world champion ever. So it's a weird seat to go into a Red Bull, but I think having Checo there, he's a different person to bring in. Previously, all the other people coming into the seats, whether it's Kvyat, Gasly or Ocon. No, sorry, not Ocon. Albon. They've always been like younger and perhaps been. It seems like they're probably slightly overawed by big bad Red Bull and Verstappen being there, and they just didn't have the kind of like mental fight to kind of be able to deal with going up against Verstappen every week. Whereas Sergio Perez, he's like one of the most experienced drivers on the grid now. And he's probably going into this seat thinking, I feel so grateful to be able to get there, because there was a period when he didn't think he was going to be driving this year, and then Red Bull just decided, we're going to take a chance on him. Well, I say a chance. Going to go against what we normally do when we hire drivers.
I was trying to think when the last time there was a genuine battle between two teams where it was, rather than an inter-team battle, Hamilton and Rosberg, it was, driver A from one team, driver A from another team. And I'm thinking it's
2009?
You could say, but then yes, 2009. It was at the end. It was Vettel finished second, but Barrichello was Jensen's main challenger until the last race, and then Vettel won, I think, the last race in 2009 in Abu Dhabi, and that meant that he ended up finishing second. So really, it's 2008 when in that McLaren Ferrari era. Yeah. So that's 13 years.
Yeah.
That was my master. That's 13 years of it. If there only really being one team on top, it was Red Bull, then it was Mercedes. So I think those are the best seasons as well, is when you've got a genuine fight. I suppose 2012.
There was a Red Bull season when it was very close.
2012 with Alonso, and Red Bull, but that was Alonso just being a magician, and getting a car that had no right to be a title contender in a position to be one. So do you think Perez Verstappen is stronger than Hamilton Bottas as a combination?
Yeah, I mean, I reckon they could be. I mean, because I think if you put Verstappen in that Mercedes, that I reckon he'd be beating Lewis more often than not in races, and only just more often. But I reckon I put money on him beating Lewis over the course of the season. And then Sergio Perez and Bottas, they're kind of different drivers, but again I think they're kind of matched.
Moving down the grid, McLaren finished third. You might say luckily given the points penalties that Racing Point now Aston Martin had last season. Do we think that they're going to be able to maintain that third position in the Constructors' Championship this year?
All the things that have happened to McLaren in the off-season suggest yes to me. They've switched engines to Mercedes, so they've gone for what has previously been comfortably the most powerful engine. I think Zach Brown said that they moved there so they can have no excuse about it being the engine the problem now. It's all about the car. Everyone prior to testing, the big worry is McLaren going to be able to repackage the car with the new, because they were quite restricted. I didn't quite understand it fully, but they were quite restricted in what they could do to repackage the engine into the rear of the car, and with that there comes reliability issues, because for them it's a much newer car than the other ones, because I mean, remember, these are basically just last year's cars with slightly different aero packages. But they actually ended up having probably, if not the best, the second best testing, and they put in consistently top lap times during testing. Again, you can't take much from the lap times, but it still shows that they've definitely not regressed from last season. They've got probably you can bet a more powerful engine than last season. I'd say whilst Norris and Sainz was a really good drivers lineup, they've probably upped it with Ricciardo. Even though I really rate Sainz, I do love him, but I think Ricciardo is just a better driver, more experience. He's one of those guys, again, put him in the right car, he would have had championships. So I think, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, McLaren, they've gone from a good solid driver combination that clearly got on with each other and worked very well together to, they've now got a proven race winner in their car. Ricciardo seems like such just a good egg. He's quick, he's going to get the most out of the car, he's going to work well with the team. Looking around, it looks like their closest competitors, Aston Martin, may be having similar problems, which makes sense given they have the same car as Mercedes. So they may have regressed a little bit. I mean, it's such an interesting situation for Sebastian Vettel now. He's joined a long list of people where it didn't work, champions going to Ferrari where it didn't work out, and what happens next for him. And I think such a difficult year, 2020, not just from the performances on the track, but also just how he sounded over the radio, just sounding really dour and downcast. And I think it was a really difficult year for him. And I really hope that being in a new environment where he's perhaps got, more of an opportunity to kind of construct that kind of ecosystem around him. And let's be honest, he's bringing 4 world championships and what it takes to do that to a team that hasn't won but has aspirations, and in terms of being able to reach where they did last year, because they were, I would say they were the third best team on the grid. They just didn't quite have, a bit like what we were saying with yes, Red Bull might be the quickest, but are they going to be able to maximise their performance for 23 races? Racing Point were the third quickest car, but they weren't able to maximise their performance through, just because it's Formula One. And so are they the 4th best team? I think it sounds like, to throw another team into the mix, the real surprise from testing was AlphaTauri, and what they were gonna. It's that kind of thing that people say where you can't say why, but people just say the car looks good, it looks quick, and I think that's reflected in some of the times, the amount of mileage they were able to do, and where they fit in. I think that's the big sort of unknown, because there isn't any real sort of like racing results to reflect on. So that perception is based on 3 days of testing in Bahrain, and it gives you an idea, but you can't know for certain. So where do they fit in? Are they going to be the guys next pushing McLaren for third? Is it going to be Aston Martin as it was last year under as Racing Point? And where are Ferrari, of course, with their normal red, darker red, and green.
Well, they don't have the green on the website, so I don't know.
Yeah, hopefully that was run that logo.
Hopefully that was a testing thing.
Oh.
But yeah, I mean, this just goes back to like the point that the midfield is so competitive and so interesting. You take a Mercedes, you take Red Bull out of the, you take them out there, and it would be a really interesting competition. Like it went down to the last race last year with the midfield. The only reason why that wasn't interesting is because they weren't finishing first and second.
I think I agree. I think it'd be great if the midfield battle and the closeness between McLaren, Aston Martin, Ferrari, AlphaTauri, and Alpine. I don't know. I've heard it's Alpine, and Alpine. There are 5 teams there, so half the grid, where you wouldn't be shocked if any of them were on the podium in third. So imagine if you have 5 teams where you wouldn't be shocked if they won. But it seems that there's always, there just must be something innate about the distribution of resources, about, resources being drivers, personnel, money, that you always have 1, 2 at the top, a congested middle, and then some sort of stragglers at the back. So like an A, B, and C kind of class. Wow. I don't know what you think about those 5 teams, if it's possible to put them in an order. But I'd say McLaren are the best of the rest, and then it's a bit of a bum fight, isn't it, between Aston Martin, Alpine, AlphaTauri, and Ferrari.
Yeah, I mean, like everyone, like everything I've heard about Yuki Tsunoda has just been over like crazy positive. But yeah, so they seem to, and they tested well again. I think actually AlphaTauri had the most miles out of testing, and they put in some decent times. Again, can't really go on times, but the car looked good. The drivers, Pierre Gasly had his best season in F1 last season. He's probably riding high on confidence. Hopefully he can take that into this season. And then they've got probably, I mean, can't judge it just yet, but it seems like an upgrade on Danny Kvyat with Yuki Tsunoda.
It sounds like Honda have done a really good job, which obviously benefits
both the teams.
And it's classic Honda doing really well and possibly having, a chance to win something just as they're leaving. It seems like they could be the surprise package. If you discount that it's a surprise that Red Bull might be the quickest, AlphaTauri might be the sort of the other big surprise to come out of testing.
Yeah, because they had a good season last season as well. So they seem to have improved, judging by their off season. Another team that seems like they've managed to improve is Ferrari as well. They put in some good times. I mean, they obviously were just running. They were running on an engine last season that they had to run with far lower power because they basically were caught not cheating. But so they've come into this season hopefully with an improved power unit.
I think it's given their ceiling from what team principal
Matteo Binotto or something?
Matteo Binotto has said is third, and you're talking about Ferrari. They have really had to sort of reevaluate their,
Matteo Binotto.
Good
glasses.
Very good eyewear.
Yeah.
They've really had to sort of reposition where they're aiming for, and they might get there by the end of the year. Again, it's a long season, but right now yes, I think they've improved, but I think cars have improved around them, and they were sixth last year. I think they're probably around there now, albeit being slightly stronger and perhaps have a car that's more drivable, and not necessarily a better lineup, but two drivers which are fully motivated and feel like they have the support of the team behind them, to maximise the potential from the car. Sometimes it's really cool to see talented drivers like Charles Leclerc in Dogs of Cars, just to see what they can do with it. I'm reminded of Alonso in some of those McLaren Hondas where he was just blitzed the first lap and found himself in the points, and then just was battling for the entire race, slowly moving backwards, but just driving the pants off the car. And that was definitely a year for Charles Leclerc.
It's probably going to be very good for his overall career, having to deal with a car like that, because it seemed like many points throughout the season it was just very hard to drive.
But I think this is the best looking, from a livery point of view, grid in a long time.
Yeah, apart from my big hope is that Haas's livery is illegal, so they have to change it, because then
welcome to Haas Grand Prix Racing.
Because
I didn't know. So Russia are annexing racing teams now. Annex Ukraine, annex Crimea, and now they've annexed
Haas F1.
I think I like Mercedes sticking with the black, but with a bit of silver at the back. I think a Red Bull's a Red Bull, and has been forever. But the McLaren is cool. I like the Aston Martin is just what you expect. Great to see British racing green. Alpine looks really cool. I haven't seen enough of them on track with their sort of 1970s Ligier bulbous air intake.
Yeah, thing. It's a weird looking thing, but because it's kind of hidden because of because of the way
It's like
angles look.
But no, I think I like the Williams with the little yellowy bits. No title sponsor, which is interesting. Alfa Romeo looks cool. Alpha Tauri was sort of inverted with the blue where the white was from last year. Looks really cool. Yeah, I think they've done really well. I never understood. There are all these people on Instagram who like do their own liveries that all look way better, way better than what the actual teams put out. And I don't know if they're limited by sponsors with how sort of like jazzy they can make them.
I mean, I think that is definitely the case.
But this year they are on point, I think. We probably should chat a bit about Alonso because I think Alpine are in that midfield mix, but is Alonso going to be able to, as we kind of mentioned as he did a bit with McLaren, wrestle the pants off it and get it towards the top end of that midfield battle?
There are a few drivers who can like probably get more performance out of the car than there's actually there, and history says that Fernando Alonso is definitely one of them. I mean, how long has he been out? Of 2 seasons, so I mean, I don't know. He looked good in testing. He doesn't look like, so I reckon if he's not like completely on it in the first few races, by like halfway through the season, he'll be pushing that car, getting all the performance that he can. So yeah, I think he'd be good for them.
And then so moving next, we've gone through Mercedes and Red Bull, that middle battle of 5 between McLaren, Aston Martin, Alpha Tauri, Ferrari, and Alpine.
Do you want to try and place them?
So I would say McLaren.
Yeah.
Then I think by the end of the season, Ferrari.
Okay.
Then probably Alpha Tauri.
Okay.
Aston Martin, Alpine. But it's very close.
Yeah,
it's very
close.
Yeah. And I find it so boring when the grid is 2 by 2 by 2 and when the championship table is 2 by 2 by 2. I think within the championship, I think Alonso will outperform. I think I've ranked Alpine worst, but I think Alonso will outperform the car the most. So he could very well be, out of those 10 drivers from those 5 teams, he could be in the top 3.
So you reckon? So Alonso's going to be above Ocon. Do you reckon Ricciardo and Norris?
I think Ricciardo, but I think Norris is. I think they're both going to get podiums this year. And if there's a scenario like we had in something like Monza, and it's McLaren who are the best placed to capitalise. Monza last year, McLaren are in like the AlphaTauri position, they might win a race. And
then so Vettel and Stroll.
I want Vettel to be like his bounce back year, and
agreed.
I don't think. I mean, he's in a better car than he was last year, I think, and his results will be better because I think his motivation is going to be better, and he's just in a better environment. I don't know how many podiums he's going to get, but I hope this is a big sort of bounce back year for him, and he I see it. But he's a 4-time world champion. He's bringing more to the table still, I think, than Lance Stroll.
But I mean, with Stroll, I mean, I think he's 22, isn't he? So he's still so young. I think he I mean, obviously consistency is an issue with him. But he had some peaks last season that show that he's got something. He's not necessarily the pay driver that people might
he's better
hold against him.
Vettel's bringing so much more experience to the table, and I think it might be difficult for Stroll because for him, I think it's going to feel like a backward steps in terms of car performance because he's probably going from pound for pound the 3rd best team to maybe the 5th. And that's going to be something difficult for him to manage. Whereas Vettel is going from 6th to probably a bit better and a better environment all round.
Sainz and Leclerc. I think it's quite an interesting one.
I think, it sounds like a great move for Sainz, joining Ferrari, but it feels like Barrichello 2000 to me.
Well, is it Leclerc's the one with like the longest contract Ferrari's ever given a driver, isn't he? And they're all in on. Yeah, and Ferrari, if there's a team on the grid that has a 1 and a 2, it is Ferrari. And I don't know if it's written anywhere, but that's the way the team is geared. And he's definitely going backwards, I think, in terms of car performance.
he's probably going from where he was the stronger of the two drivers to potentially the weaker in terms of ability, but then also in terms of standing in the team. I mean, could any F1 driver turn down a Ferrari seat if it was offered to them? I think it was very difficult to, but there's actually, apart from the cachet of driving for Ferrari, I don't see a lot of upside for Sainz in the short term anyway.
No, particularly as he's leaving a team that is definitely on the up. But yeah, I just think the Ferrari badge just commands so much power that, I mean, I can imagine they can pay a fair amount more of Ferrari as well than McLaren. So,
but in terms of answering your question, Leclerc over Sainz.
Who do you actually think is the better driver out of the two, though?
I mean, I think Leclerc. I think his. It's a miracle. He's only won one race, I think, in his career.
Yeah, in that 2018 season, wasn't it?
Which 2019, which is just bizarre when you think how strong Ferrari were in 2019, and there were quite a few circumstances where he was winning and then he had problems, and he which cost him victories when he was leading races, and some tactical decisions which Ferrari always seem to struggle with in competition. But I think he is stronger. He's a stronger driver, and he is sort of Ferrari's number one, and the environment will reflect that in terms of how much support he gets over Sainz.
Yuki Tsunoda, Pierre Gasly. It's hard to tell with a new driver coming in like that.
Yeah, and as you said, Gasly had it was his comeback special last year. Not just winning in Monza, but just how that was a catalyst. It's very hard to call where a rookie is going to sit before the races start. But this year there's Tsunoda, Mazepin and Schumacher. I think we haven't really spoken about the rear of the grid, but he's definitely going to be the best of the three in terms of performance.
Yeah.
And Schumacher and Mazepin are going to be racing each other basically, and a bit like Russell and Latifi in Williams. You give Gasly the nod over. It's very rare for a rookie to come in and outperform their teammate.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he did, though. I mean, that's not me basing it on anything apart from what people who know things say about Yuki Tsunoda. But yeah, I mean, Gasly, he's had such a strong season last season. It looks like they've got a good car this season, so your money is still on Gasly to outperform.
So are Alfa Romeo going to sort of attach themselves to the back end of the midfield, or are they going to be in sort of a freeway back for the tail end of the grid with Williams and Haas?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like Haas has given up on the season before it started, really. So it wouldn't surprise me if they were just complete back markers every single race. And I think they're going with kind of like two rookie drivers. I mean, I think a lot of that was just funding. They needed Nikita Mazepin's dad's money to be able to keep going, and I think.
Welcome to Formula One.
I think and also the wealth that Mick Schumacher will bring just because of the name that comes along with that.
It is cool having a Schumacher back on the grid, isn't it?
Yeah.
And even he's spoken about how important it was for his MSH.
Yeah.
For that
MSC.
What
the naming?
He wanted the same as his dad.
Yeah.
And it was important to him.
Yeah.
And seeing that on the graphics is going to be really cool.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's probably is one of the highest profile rookies to come into the sport in a long time, maybe since his dad. Well, I don't know how high profile he was when he came in, but I don't get it. Doesn't sound like this is sort of too soon for him, and certainly not. There's zero expectation when you're joining the worst team on the grid.
Yeah, I mean that was what I was going to say. Like they've. I mean, Haas are obviously going to be in for 2022 onwards because they've signed the Concord Agreement. They wouldn't waste all this money to not go through to the new regulations where it should be more competitive for them. So they don't, and so these two don't really have to worry about performing this year because they're not really expected to. Plus, they've got this money. Plus, they're going to have seats for Haas next year. So really, they've kind of got no pressure, which I think will play into their hands being rookies because they can just spend a year getting used to what it's being like in F1, getting used to just racing like each race in F1, and when they actually have to go into a season when there will be more expectation, they'll have this kind of like experience to get back on them. So yeah, I mean, I think it would be, even though it's weird to say, it's probably a good time to be a rookie in a crap team.
Jumping back to Williams, it sounds like they've gone for quite an interesting sort of aero philosophy around trying to maximise the amount of downforce that they can generate. And it sounds like a lot of people are sort of questioning the logic of that for a team that's going to be running in traffic a lot of the time. So it might be that, on a day where conditions are nice, where it's not too windy, and they can get in some clear air, that they have good races, but they're also probably going to have some really bad ones as well as a result of that.
I think McLaren have that philosophy mid-decade, and it didn't go well for them.
Yeah, and they've reverted away from it. So now Williams turning towards that, and it's you kind of see it it's what Bottas and Hamilton would say in their Mercedes, that car worked really well when they were out in front, but then not so well when they were in dirty air, and that's logical of a team that has extracted the maximum amount of potential out of the regulations and out of the car and out of the aerodynamics and out of the chassis, that they would be most disturbed by turbulent air when they're not running in clean air. But 9 times out of 10 they're at the front, so it didn't matter. Williams, 9 times out of 10 they're going to be 10 times out of 10 they're going to be they're going to be in traffic. So
unless they're so far back.
Well, yeah. It'd be nice if Williams were able to score points again. I can't see Haas being there. But
I don't think Haas are going to score points.
But there was, I think Russell got an 11th in Mugello when everyone crashed into each other, and that was.
I think he was in the points at one point.
Yeah,
as well.
And he was pushing Leclerc right at the end to try and get past him. So if you get a race like that, maybe Williams will pick up some points. But it's looking like Alfa Romeo, Williams, and Haas is the order for the back three. Yeah. And it's just sort of a question of how spread out they are and how quickly they start getting lapped.
Yeah, Alfa Romeo, best second car on the grid for me.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say.
It's funny, they seem to be, people have an opinion on every team apart from Alfa.
Yeah.
Alfa Romeo. Williams has gone for this, as I was just saying, this sort of interesting aero philosophy. Haas, everyone knows, they're kind of written off this year. 2 rookie drivers. AlphaTauri have been the surprise package. Alpine have got Alonso back. There's a storyline. There's a storyline for every single team that people are picking up on, apart from Alfa Romeo, who's just kind of like.
But they quietly had a very good test. You're unsure how they're attempting, or whether they're attempting to push the midfield. I mean, Haas, you can see they've definitely just given up on this year, waiting for next year. I mean, obviously both Haas and Alfa were massively hamstrung by their power unit. Their power unit last year.
I wanted to talk about 23 races on the calendar, and I must admit I have been really sort of revved up for the start of this year, more so than I have been sort of like in the last few seasons. I think that was because 17 races last year, and on the face of it, it was another Lewis Hamilton Mercedes dominant season. But in between that, there were some bonkers races where pile-ups in Mugello, shock wins in Monza and Sakhir.
Whatever happened in Turkey.
Yeah, bonkers races. It was probably, within those 17 races, they were some of the best races that we've seen in a long, long time. And the upshot of it was a short season relative to what we've seen more recently, and it left me wanting more. Coming into 2021 with 23 races stretching out before us, I think Formula One is, getting into dangerous territory in terms of sort of saturating its own market with the amount of Grand Prix that they're having. And you never, I think no sport wants to be in a position where a match, event, race feels missable. And I worry that, 23 races is just going to be, another one. It's going to make people feel like, well, I can afford to miss this one. There's another 22 happening. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, so is this the most amount of races in a season ever?
Yes.
I mean, I think if all the races have like history of giving good races, then you might be able to swing 23. The problem is there are some tracks that are just consistently throwing up duds throughout the season. Mainly looking at Sochi and Abu Dhabi, where they're just, when the fans and drivers don't like them. But I assume for funding reasons, I assume that it must be just the fee that those races pay to have a race is significant, which, I mean, especially post-pandemic, entertainment industries need money. So, and that's why they've expanded it to 23. Again, it's just because I think they need to make up for lost time that they didn't get last season.
It's one of the, I've heard discussed benefits of perhaps, and another reason to encourage them dabbling with sprint race qualifying, because suddenly if that was a structure that they wanted to roll out for every race, you're doubling the number of races you're running. So maybe you don't need to go to 23 countries. Maybe you only need to go to 16, 17, because you're still getting 34 races. You're getting 34 races out of that. I don't know. What do you think about sprint race qualifying?
So I kind of instinctively don't like it. But I don't know whether that's just because, having watched F1 for quite a while, I'm very used to the practice quali race format. And I think since they've brought in the new qualifying structure that they've had for ages now, the three...
It's not so you. I think it's probably until...
Well, yeah.
From
the latest qualifying structure.
It's probably the longest running set structure, apart from the weird times when they've tweaked it.
Yeah.
That they've had for a while, since 2006.
Yeah.
5, 6. One of those.
Well, yeah, and its longevity proves that it's probably the most successful one they've done, I think it does make a lot of sense, because it forces jeopardy on throughout the qualifying, and then you kind of like, you're just getting this one race that's like the big event at the end. So I'm instinctively against it, but the fact that most, or if not all, of the teams support it makes me think that people who are in it think this is a good idea. So I'm happy to, and they're going to test it. It's only a test. So let's see how it goes.
I think there's a few variables that they should test within that. I think they should maybe try one of the three with points, without points, to see if that impacts the racing at all. How much, because you really don't want to devalue the Grand Prix. So even by awarding some points, if this is a if this is a structure that you do want to bring in long term, do you want a situation where a world championship is won in a qualifying sprint race on a Saturday? So, and if you don't, well then, do you award any points for that race? And if you don't award any points, are the drivers going to really race each other hard? Is R1 and 2 really going to push each other when all they're racing for is to be next to each other on the front row? The other thing that I think they really need to do is make sure that the race is different. The racing is, and the whole structure is different from the Grand Prix. It can't just be a shorter Grand Prix with the same issues around tyre management and the rest of it. I would really like to see a short race where the drivers are just able to go flat out for however many laps it is. If that's on like special tyres that are designed just for that distance, that the drivers know that they can push for the number of laps. Just as an example of a way where it will be different from, you're not just watching a shorter Grand Prix. And something that they need to be wary of and they need to think about is at the end of sort of like the trial, what if the sprint race as a spectacle is better than an hour and a half Grand Prix? You know, what if more people watch because it's shorter, the racing's more exciting? You know, you're sort of making this up. You don't know, but what do they do if that happens? What does that say about the Grand Prix if it proves to be popular, more popular than the full, you know? And you know, you're just thinking of sort of like the average attention, and especially if that is delineated by age. And you know, all sports, all rights holders are obsessed with trying to attract a younger audience because they're worried that their audience is going to die, is getting closer to death. So what if a load of 15 to 25-year-olds really love the sprint race and tune in on a Saturday to watch that, and none of them stick around for the Grand Prix on Sunday? These are you can't answer these questions now, but they're just things that I hope that they're thinking about and are aware of.
Yeah, I mean, lots of sports have toyed with the kind of like short form. I mean, the most famous one is 2020, and in cricket, if people didn't realise, but and the impact that that's had on the sport has probably been mixed, for the same ways that you're slightly highlighting. The thing is that 2020 has done really well in attracting audiences, but has it translated into what people think is? I mean, it's slightly different.
Is it cricket?
Yeah, is it like cricket to the purists? And has it translated people to watching Test cricket, if that's really what people need to be doing? If that's like the ultimate aim of 2020, I don't know. but I mean, maybe that's like maybe that's a wrong way of looking at it. Then maybe offer the sprint race for people who like the sprint race, and then people are still gonna like the proper race who like it.
Yeah, I'm putting my cards on the table. I haven't watched qualifying in I don't know how long. I'll always I'll make a point of I'll make sure I can watch the race, but I'm quite happy just to find out who's where in qualifying. But a sprint race is gonna when they do it, I'm gonna make a point of watching, see what it's like. And I think I, as quite a passionate F1 fan, is more likely to watch on Saturday because just certainly to begin with, for the novelty factor, to see what it's like. So it might draw more people who tune in on Sunday into it, and it also might draw in more people from outside. It's probably those people from outside. It's probably those people who it draws in from Sunday to watch on Saturday who are less likely to be like, oh, I'm not going to... I can't see many people who make that journey are then going to not tune in on Sunday.
Yeah, and I don't think F1 has to worry about it competing with itself on this. Because with all the other sports that have dealt with multiple formats, there's no like direct link between them. They just compete with each other for audiences, whereas you can see the sprint race and you can see how that's directly going to impact the actual race because it's essentially qualifying. So, and also you're not competing for like players or drivers because it's the same people doing it. You're not competing for skills because there might be some slightly different skills involved in a sprint race, but really you're still just trying to drive a car as fast as you can around a track. So, I don't think it could be the case, but I don't think it competing with itself is going to be an issue.
Okay, where I think it is better thought out than previous tweaks to qualifying, is that often when Formula One has experimented with its qualifying format, it has been to try to engineer a better race in terms of hoping to mix the grid up, where they had sort of like one-shot qualifying where, the hope was that Schumacher might make a mistake on his one qualifying lap and qualify 10th. Never happened. Or, rain might interfere and it rains at the end when all the quick guys are going, so they'll qualify at the back of the grid. Again, that didn't happen very often. That was about improving the race, whereas this is about getting more people interested in the whole weekend, what happens on Saturday. And I think that as a first principle is a better place to start.
Briefly touch on some of the other circuits, the new circuits. I think that's worth doing.
I am very pleased that Imola is back. Is it called Imola this time? Or is it called... is it called San Marino? Is it the San Marino Grand Prix?
The Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix.
Why is it?
Because it's not actually in San Marino.
Okay.
So they basically F1 races, you can only host one race per country. So it being in Italy, they had to pretend that it was actually the San Marino Grand Prix because that's a different country.
San Marino wasn't having it.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, maybe they just weren't bothered. Maybe it was just easier to say the Emilia-Romagna one. Yeah.
Oh.
Portugal, I'm really, really glad that was.
What is it about tracks that go up and down?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just another kind of different kind of track to just bring a different style of racing.
And they never went there last year, but I'm really excited to see them going around Zandvoort as well. Some of the banking, which I picked up from F1 2020. I think turn 3 is very highly banked, and there might be some opportunities for some brave moves around the outside going around there, and obviously the last corner very heavily banked as well. I'm pleased that they're going there. And I remember reflecting on this with the old head of F1 at Sky Sports that it's mad that basically the Netherlands has a Grand Prix because of Max Verstappen. Like, if he wasn't in the sport, they wouldn't have a Grand Prix there. And and the same was true of Alonso when they had 2 races in Spain. Like he
the same with Sergio Perez in Mexico.
Yeah, it's like it's amazing the power that the driver has to kind of bring the sport to a new territory, and it's an argument for trying to kind of like diversify the grid as much as possible. I think it's a shame. I've always thought it's a shame that there isn't a race in Africa, and it's one of the rare because I think it was in the 2 years they had it in the 90s. I can't remember which, but it was the only year that F1 has raced on every continent that is habitable. So excluding
was that Kyalami?
Yeah, when they raced. So they raced in Africa, North, South America, Europe, Asia, and Australasia. But I'm not keen for adding a 24th race to the calendar. So I think it's going to be cool to go around Zandvoort, and it's going to be interesting to see, because I didn't do any street races last year, how they handle that vis-a-vis COVID. How they deliver a Grand Prix on a street circuit with all the, COVID regulations that come. And, I bring it up just because, particularly someone like Monaco, everything is just so much more tighter and compact. And their sort of biosphere that they created, you can understand why an isolated track away from everything, you can kind of create that environment. But how do you do that in Monaco when you're just in you're in a town with everyone else? Like, do you lock everyone else up and you just rule the roost for the week? Like, I don't know how. I mean, I'm glad I don't have to solve that problem.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds hard enough putting on a street race when there's not COVID. So, but I mean, definitely. I mean, glad they're back, and the new street circuit, very different looking to other. Actually, very different looking to most other circuits on the grid, but especially other street circuits.
There was a bonus track on F1 97, which was the outline of a Formula One car. And it kind of reminds me of that, just because it's sort of like, it's like twisty, get to one end, turn around, twisty, come back the other way.
I mean, I think it's got the most corners, like 27 corners, all fast speed.
Sounds exhausting.
Yeah, I mean, but this is the thing. Like, I mean, a lot of people were moaning, saying like, "Oh, where's the overtaking opportunity? Where's the braking zone? Stuff like that." But like, there's enough tracks with like straights and braking zones. Most of the tracks that have long straights and braking zones don't challenge the drivers, so they can just go around, like, not having to push the car because the track doesn't allow them to.
Yeah.
This circuit looks like it's going to test cars and drivers, and I think that has an opportunity to force mistakes which make things interesting.
Yeah, and F1 tends to have two kinds of tracks. One's where it's really easy to pass with DRS. Ones where it's impossible to pass. The best are the ones in the middle.
I mean, it's that, but I just think you want variety of circuit that is going to challenge the driver. Be that somewhere like Monza, because it's actually so fast paced, it's really, really hard to get the most out of it. Or it's somewhere like Silverstone where there's loads of fast turns that just challenge a driver's timing, and Zandvoort is going to be a similar one to that, where it's all about just driver skill in getting the car around really fast corners. And then you have like the slow circuits where like Monaco, which is probably like one of the most challenging drives on the circuit. I mean, obviously on the calendar. I mean, obviously it's all about qualifying with that, but again, it's just like different styles of track that challenge the driver, which make it interesting.
I think my hope is that, and I think in terms of like the atmosphere, I know they're letting vaccinated people into the Bahrain Grand Prix to watch, and my hope is that sort of as we go through the season, it almost sort of follows a sort of like an opened up kind of situation. I mean, purely selfishly, ideally by the time it gets to Silverstone, that there'll be people there to watch. But that is also true of, all the races that they're going to. Presumably there'll have to be people watching at like Monaco and Singapore, because they'll be just staring out their balconies, unless they're confined to their beds so they can keep socially distanced from the track. Who is going to win the Drivers' Championship?
Lewis Hamilton. Yeah.
I agree. Runner-up. We'll do a top three.
Okay, runner-up. Ooh, I think it's still going to be Bottas.
You think it's okay? We disagree. I think Verstappen's going to come second, and I think who do you think is going to come third? Verstappen. Okay, so I'm going with Hamilton, Verstappen, and Perez.
Oh.
And a bit like Ferrari in '99, Red Bull are going to win the constructors without winning the drivers. Happens. That wasn't the last time that happened, but I think as I say, I think the combination of overall package plus the driver combination is enough to win them the constructors. But I think Lewis is probably gonna get his 8th, and if he does, so I think he's probably more likely to that be his last season if he wins this one.
Yeah. Well, so Bottas hater over there.
I don't hate Valtteri. I just he's been. I think Valtteri's performance in Mercedes has really sort of elevated Nico Rosberg, his stature, because Lewis beat him 2 times out of 3 when they were going for the championship. No, 3 times out of 2. No, 2 times out of 3. But they were toe-to-toe, racing.
Yeah.
The first season it went down to the last race. Second season Rosberg had a lot of bad luck. And then the third season Rosberg won. Albeit with Hamilton having some bad luck. And as I said, their relationship was such that Hamilton knew he was going up against someone who was every bit as good as him.
Yeah.
And the fact that another guy has come in and hasn't been able to do that shows that it's not just about the car. And yeah, that's why Valtteri and Lewis get on so well, because Lewis knows he's better than him. What's your top three for Bahrain?
Hamilton's going to win. I think it's going to be a Mercedes 1-2 again.
Why? Why do you think that? Justify your answer.
Justify it. Just history. the amount of times we've got like our hopes up that it's going to be a competitive season. I think it's still going to be more competitive, but I just think Mercedes are still going to, particularly at the start. I think Mercedes are just going to win, get 1-2 in Bahrain.
I would agree, but for the fact that they were testing on the same track, and there's only 2 weeks in between. 2 weeks is a long time in Formula One, particularly for a team like Mercedes with the resources at their disposal. But nevertheless, is it enough time to make up the differences that there are between them and Red Bull? I agree with you about how we've been here before with Ferrari, but Ferrari is a very different beast to Red Bull. Red Bull is a team that in terms of the overall team, won 4 drivers and constructors championships. They know how to win races. They have finally got the best package at the start of the season instead of at the end, which they've always developed well throughout the season. And I think they've got a driver in Max Verstappen who knows how to maximise. He's going to maximise the performance. He's won enough races to not be overawed by the challenge of being in the best car.
Yeah.
And I see no reason why they aren't going to be the quickest at the start. So I think it's going to be Verstappen, probably from Hamilton, and then Bottas or Perez, assuming there are no DNFs.
Yeah.
So I think we've got the same combination, just in a different. I've put Verstappen at the top.
You're a bit more of an optimist than me.
Yes, there we go.
An optimist for a competitive season.
Yes, yeah. So and it's 4 p.m. Lights out, 4 p.m. I see they've gone back to top of the hour instead of 5 minutes past, which they did for some time. Let's do your favourite Murray Walker commentary line in honour of the great man. I'm looking at it. I have his book, which shares the title with this brand new podcast. Unless I'm very much mistaken. And I got him to sign that. I didn't get him. He was at Goodwood at the Festival of Speed in 2003 for signing these books. And when he signed his name, I saw he was left-handed. I'm left-handed. And I said, "Oh, you're left-handed." And he said, "All the best people are."
I'll let you
and I've told people that all the best people are left-handed ever since, because Murray Walker said so.
Nice. I don't know if you've seen it, but there is a great YouTube clip of Jeremy Clarkson interviewing Murray Walker. He commentates on snooker, and it is so goddamn
Which ball's
funny.
he going to hit? He's going to hit the white ball.
He's missed it. Fantastic. Sorry, I've just read the Mansell quote. Nigel Mansell is slowing down now. He's taking it easy. Oh no, he isn't. It's a new lap record.
How'd
you get that?
Brilliant.